Attachment, dissociation, and the relational impact of trauma. Trauma is the exposure to life-threatening experiences where a person is faced with overwhelming feelings of helplessness and terror at the possibility of annihilation. Life and death moments accompanied by abandonment, isolation, hopelessness, shame, and invisibility. Trauma, especially the kind that is due to interpersonal violence and exploitation, can have a profoundly negative impact on its victim's capacity to develop and maintain relationships. Because interpersonal relationships are such an essential part of everyday life, learning how to build and maintain healthy relationships with members of our immediate family, extended family, coworkers, and community members is vital. The diagnostic criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder are interpersonal. The symptoms manifest in this way: avoidance of people who arouse recollection of the traumatic event, feelings of detachment or estrangement from others, a restricted range of affect or unable to have loving feelings, a sense of foreshortened future. The emotionally injured person does not expect to have a career, marriage, children, or a normal lifespan, and irritability or outbursts of anger. Because of these symptoms, traumatized individuals have a difficult time relating to other people. Along with that, other people have a hard time relating to them, leading to social isolation, which compounds the PTSD. A person who has experienced complex trauma in childhood will exhibit signs of developmental difficulties, inhibit the child's sense of self, ability to identify and modulate emotions, the ability to be self-aware, and have difficulty maintaining personal safety. Dr. John Bowlby studied attachment in great detail. He determined that the availability and responsiveness of the primary caretaker offers protection from overstimulation and threat and teaches social interaction and other life skills, which enables both physiological and psychological development and regulation. As may be expected, individuals operating from a secure model of attachment have high levels of self-esteem and cognitive organization and consistency, and are typically better able to express emotion and resolve conflicts. Clients with insecure preoccupied attachment or insecure ambivalent portray strong emotions such as anxiety, dependence, anger, and jealousy. They often relate to others in ways that are extreme, alternating between idealization and deprecation. Their sense of self is not well developed. They engage in risk-taking or addictive behaviors in the interest in affect management, and they may cling to unhealthy relationships in a frantic attempt to avoid being alone. Clients with insecure dismissing attachment or insecure avoidant display discomfort with intimacy, defensive self-reliance, denial of distress, and sometimes hostility towards others. They have learned to deny and minimize their feelings and are less likely than others to seek treatment. They may take a dismissing, condescending, or a disrespectful stance with authority figures. To recover from PTSD, there must be a strong supportive system of people. When a child is harmed emotionally or physically by their primary caregiver or attachment figure, a variety of insecure attachments can form. Some researchers believe that the self and attachment difficulties are at the heart of trauma, especially during childhood. Attachment researchers and relational therapists have hypothesized that the explicit attention and response to interpersonal and attachment issues, attachment styles can be strengthened and even change over time from insecure and disorganized to secure. A therapist can dramatically help a child with the transition to a secure attachment by being capable of forming a secure attachment, by attuning or joining with the client, and having the competence to engage in relational repair with the client whenever attachment disruption occurs. Repairing an insecure attachment can be challenging. The therapist must maintain or regain emotional equanimity, calm, cool composure, and tolerance in the face of the client's push-pull style, disjointed affect, risk-taking behavior, and re-victimization. As therapists maintain awareness of their countertransference, emotional reactiveness responses, as they attempt to understand and name the client's shifting states while managing their own emotions, which may arise either in response to or as a result of projective identification, they will engender true healing of the client. Above all, therapists must practice their own self-care. Some ways the therapist can use self-care are yoga, mindfulness, and meditation. Daily exercise, eating healthy meals, maintaining a consistent routine, as well as consulting with supervisors and other colleagues, and maintaining a healthy emotional support system all contribute to the healthy emotional intelligence of the therapist. Family members, including spouses, siblings, friends, and others who are systemically connected to the trauma survivor, can aid in healing by being authentic and emotionally available in their interactions. They must display high emotional integrity and intelligence. This means that loved ones must maintain an awareness of their feelings and needs, work to understand the origin of the trauma, and use that information to understand and support the trauma survivor. Being emotionally available means being open about their motives in connecting with their loved ones. Educating them on that family often unwittingly reinforces dissociative coping is crucial to the healing process. Enhancing parent-child attachment and communication is particularly important. Maintaining a close, supportive relationship with grandparents and community members is equally helpful. Establishing a tribe that delivers the same message of support and love ensures the safety and security of the individual suffering from PTSD. Many complex trauma survivors manage strong emotions by using dissociation, which may contribute to negative self-worth. Whatever its manifestation, dissociation is an alteration of self and relational capacity that is usually at the interest of self-protection and often occurs outside the client's conscious awareness. Some suggest that dissociation begins as an individual defense against an unexpected and overwhelming negative experience. Over time, this defense pattern becomes entrenched as an automatic and uncontrollable response to stress, with repetition and anticipation of probable attack. A striking example of dissociation is Nalia, a little girl from Indonesia who loved playing with butterflies. Her father came along and slowly tore them up in front of her. In her diary, she wrote, "My little soul went away so that she could play with the butterflies and not have to watch them being destroyed." Further exploration of dissociation is the creation of a false self, which is used as a self-care mechanism during a crisis. When dissociation is continued, it seeks to protect the regressed self, even to the point of becoming persecutory in the service of self-preservation and avoidance of re-traumatization. It is a sad reality that trauma in and of itself does not shatter self-organization. Still, the internal process destroys the organization to protect or maintain a sense of coherence that is the self. If dissociation prevails over time, there is a fragmentation of the self. According to the constructivist self-development theory, there are 5 critical needs about self and others that are affected by traumatic life experiences. They are safety, trust, esteem, intimacy, and control. If these 5 needs are not met, the lens through which the traumatized individual looks shows the world as a dangerous place. If an individual does not heal from their trauma, unhealthy relationships can develop. One form of an unhealthy relationship is a traumatic bond that is formed between a victim and their perpetrator. The traumatic bond creates an addiction-like attraction to the emotionally unhealthy individual. The victim enables harmful, deceitful, or abusive behavior to receive love and feels that the partner is controlling their every move. In the event of an entire country being subjected to severe trauma, there is much more complexity in the traumatic bonds formed. Survivor bonds are strong alliances that form in the context of fighting back, and victim bonds are relationships between those who feel powerless and defeated and trying to change their situation. Survivors in political movements have to endure disappointment in one another and themselves. This failure can feel enormous. Failure to nurture each other or save each other, and failure to hate the violence more than each other when disappointment hits. In this instance, there is enormity of shared history, where whole cultures and communities have endured living with a sense of betrayal and abandonment. The way to healing is a long, agonizing journey, consisting of courage to overcome the original survival of trauma, to the point of forgiving themselves and their movements for the pain and losses and failure they endured together and at times inflicted on one another. As we understand how the self is formed, The information gained will be beneficial in aiding a loved one who experiences dissociation as a protective mechanism. The self is conceived as an internal organization of attitudes, feelings, expectations, and meanings. The organization of the self evolves from dyadic experience through recursive patterns of differentiation and integration, providing a framework for subsequent individual experience. When a strong, stable sense of self is gained, the individual forms healthy, loving relationships. For therapists and loved ones to create healing, they must establish 4 core elements: respect, information, connection, and hope, or the acronym RICH. It is imperative to have a long experience of continuity and consistency, maintaining support and acceptance. Failure to integrate meaningful experiences represents a profound distortion or fragmentation of the self. When experience is acknowledged and accepted, integration follows. As survivors integrate the experiences that have happened to them, they come to see the traumatic events in their life as part of their story, not their entire story. When one can use their experience as a learning tool and not as a way to define themselves, true healing is happening. Here are my references. Thanks for listening to my presentation.